The Russo-Finnish War, more commonly known as the Winter War. This was the Soviet invasion of Finland of 1939. However, what was the true meaning behind this war? Why did Russia do it? And what we're gonna most answer in the and then what we're gonna answer in this video was why did Russia even invade Finland in the first place? In this video, we will be taking a deep dive into the invasion, into the Winter War, and everything about it. Now, this is a picture of the Russian Empire from World War I, of course, and all other cases. As you can see, they have Alaska, part of China, that area, I don't know, I think Mongolia too. Mongolia's right there. But as you can see, most importantly, they have Finland. And this wouldn't really mean much at first, but when the Soviet Union came along, all of this land, well, they did lose this land here, some of this land, and there. But most of all, they lost Finland. Now, because of this, Leningrad was also not as secure as it was before. If somebody invaded through up here, they would have to go through Finland before touching Leningrad, or like that. Problem is now, Finland's border was basically right on the doorstep of Leningrad. And this was problematic for Stalin and the Soviet people. So as we can see here, at the invasion's start, Russia had around 1,800,000 soldiers. Finland only had around 200,000. You would think this would be a landslide victory, and we'll figure that out. But it was all set for a war between these two nations, and we're about to see what will happen. On November 30th, 1939, 400,000 Soviet infantry units, equaling out to be around 21 divisions, marched into Finland. However, these divisions were repulsed by Finland. In fact, Finland had really killed off a lot of them. And now Russia had to send in even more soldiers. But how come the Red Army was failing? What was going on? What was happening? Well, let's just say that the Russian army was ill-equipped, didn't really have winter gear, and since it got really snowy, as you can see in this video, as you can see here, fighting in the cold when you don't have winter uniforms and stuff, that's not good. However, another thing too was how the Russian uniform was brown. And for fighting in, let's just say, plains or a forest, that wouldn't be a problem. But in the snow where everything's white, you can easily see that. So, in other words, Finnish sharpshooters, snipers, and next guy that we'll be talking about can easily shoot down these guys. Now, the Finns had an interesting arsenal, to say the least. Primarily for rifle, they would use the Mosin Nagant. They would also use primarily, I would say, their ski units, but they, as you can see right here, their ski units or just SMG units would be using the Suomi submachine gun. Suomi, by the way, means Finland in Finnish, in case if you didn't know that. Now, these ski troops would be very successful in the beginning. Another reason how Finland was doing really well was due to the Mannerheim Line, a series of fortifications built on the Karelian Isthmus. And that Mannerheim Line did the Finns really well. It was very late until the Russians eventually penetrated the Mannerheim Line. However, if we're talking about the Finnish army, there's one guy that we have to talk about. Simo Häyhä, or the White Death, as he's more known for, is a Finnish sharpshooter/sniper. He has around 500 confirmed kills. And like a lot of Finns, he grew up as a hunter, and he knew how to ski when he was a kid, a skill that a lot of Finnish soldiers who had developed when they were children. So because of this, as you can see here, they have their submachine guns. Because of this, he did really well. Now, he had acquired a big bounty by the Russians, and he was thought to be dead when he got shot by an explosive bullet. However, the same day as a newspaper company reported this, he sprang back to life and said that he was alive. He had to go through many surgeries to stay alive, and at the end of it, he did stay alive. However, he was permanently disfigured. Now, as the war bogged down, eventually Russia was starting to gain some traction. They were starting to win. The Finns were getting pushed deep into Finland, and the Russians were penetrating deep into the Finnish lines. Because of this, Finland ultimately had to sign a peace treaty, and, well, they did not get annexed. Russia did annex some land, however, around 11% of Finland was annexed, including Salapiestimoy, I don't know how to speak Finnish, Gulf of Finland Islands, Porkla, I think it's naval base, Porkla naval base, and most biggest of all, the Karelian Isthmus. Now, Finland had suffered around 25,000 casualties, whereas the Soviet Union had suffered a staggering 126,000 casualties. Bit intense, but you have to do what you have to do. If we're comparing the Winter War, a great comparison of the Winter War nowadays would in fact probably be the war in Ukraine. Think about it. Russia's fighting against a country that's a lot smaller, is not as well equipped, has a much smaller army, definitely a lot smaller of an army, doesn't have many vehicles, and stuff like that. And Russia is still losing. Like they did in the Winter War. History has repeated itself, ladies and gentlemen. History has repeated itself. Now, Russia still controls these Gulf of Finland islands, the Karelia Isthmus, and these areas right here. Porkla Naval Base, they actually don't control anymore. I think they stopped controlling that in 1956. But yeah, that's pretty much the Winter War in a nutshell. The Finns did really successful. Because they only suffered around 25,000 casualties. They still had enough forces to repel the Soviet Union from 1941 to 44 in the Continuation War, or just Operation Barbarossa.